Hey everybody, this is Doomhammer, and we have completed the 14th season of my 32-team franchise, and we're headed to the off-season. So here are some coaches who are sticking around. We have Joe Philbin after his first year with the Buffalo Bills. He has retained. They went 8-9 on the year, not bad with a rookie quarterback in Marcus Mariota, and Marcus Mariota is going to be... he gave up their first-round pick to get him. They moved up in the draft, but 8-9 is not a bad season when they were not doing so great the year before. Jim Harbaugh was the number 2 seed with 13-4 record. Chip Kelly was 10-7 along with Bill Belichick 10-7. Jets made it to the AFC Championship game, lost to the Patriots. Belichick, as you just witnessed, made the Super Bowl, but unfortunately lost the Super Bowl. Then we got the AFC West. All 4 coaches are retained. Doug Marrone has had some good seasons, and he has also had some weak seasons. But this was really the worst season he had, going 7-10. But considering the rest of his division was over 500, very difficult to say it's his fault. He at least deserves another season. One 7-10 season after making the playoffs and doing pretty well is not enough to can him. Sean Payton. He has always had like double-digit wins. He had the number 1 team in the league this year, but there might be some friction with Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers not pleased about how this playoff played out because they should have been at least in the AFC Championship game, but they lost in the first round to the Patriots. So Peyton is maybe one of the best regular season coaches, largely due to drafting and getting Aaron Rodgers. We'll see what happens because Rodgers has yet to sign with the Chargers. The Chiefs retain Raheem Morris. He got them to the playoffs this year, 10-7. And then you've got the Las Vegas or the Oakland Raiders. I don't know when they became Las Vegas. I think they're still Oakland technically at this time frame. And Hugh Jackson was 9-8, just missed the playoffs. They are going to retain their coach. Now we switch over to the NFC East. Mike Shanahan wins the NFC East for the first time. It's been a while because the Eagles were a dominant team for many, many years. They were a Super Bowl champion recently. And so it could be the era of Dallas because right now Donovan McNabb is expected to retire as he's 38 years old. He did win a Super Bowl, appeared in 3 Super Bowls, had a 16-0 regular season. He's one of my top quarterbacks in the franchise. Andy Reid only went 7-10 this year. They were 4th in the NFC East. Not a great ending year for him. However, you don't can Andy Reid after this. They will see what Teddy Bridgewater looks like moving into next season is the current plan. John Gruden, after 1 year, is 8-9 with the Giants, so he's kind of right there in mid-city. Nothing great, nothing bad, just sort of mid. Barely missed the playoffs there. I mean, needed probably a win or two. I don't know if he was 9-8, he might have gotten into the playoffs. He would have had to have the tiebreaker over the Vikings in order to pull that one off. And then Chuck Pagano, first season as a Washington Commanders coach. He was using Colin Kaepernick, not the ideal quarterback in this situation, but won 7 games with him. And so there's some positivity going for the Commanders. But with this team, the Giants, or with this division, Giants do fire Greg Olson. Olson was 8-9 with John Gruden. Olson was like the Browns offensive coordinator before. He was somewhere else. He had 23rd in points, 23rd in offensive passing yards, 17th in rush yards, and 21st in giveaway, so gave the ball up too much. He's on the bad side of 21st. And so he is gone, and the New York Giants will have a new offensive coordinator this year. And then in the NFC North, we got Vic Fangio. After 1 season, went 6-11. He was the bottom team in the NFC North. Not a great season, but he had some QB problems. Josh Freeman sucked. Nick Foles sucked less than Josh Freeman, but still sucked. Then you have Rob Ryan, who somehow won the division. Jeep Christ, who was 9-8, and they... On my Madden franchise tool, it says that they made the playoffs and they didn't. So weird Week 18 matchup, which allowed the Vikings to squeak into the playoffs. So Jeep Christ has had 2 seasons going 9-8, and both seasons missing the playoffs. He had Brock Osweiler as quarterback, who did a great job protecting the ball, but not a great job being the real quarterback that you can rely on to win games and be dependent on. So he's kind of that mid-tier quarterback, average at best, but Jeep Christ was able to make it work to go 9-8 and have a positive record. And Perry Fewell won a playoff game, beat the 49ers, but was unable to get past the Buccaneers in the playoffs. Marty Morningway, he was the offensive coordinator for the Bears, and Vic Fangio is going in a different direction. So Marty Morningway was 6-11. He had the 32nd points scored, so worst in the league. 28th in passing yards due to bad quarterback play, and then rush yards was 19th, and they were 12th in giveaways on the positive side of the half of the league, but not good enough, and so he gets the boot. Terry Shea also gets fired. As you can see, he was with the Vikings for 4 years. Even though they did fairly well, they should have done better. I actually used ChatGPT, and I put a bunch of the rankings. As you can see, all the different rankings. I did that for this season, and I had it evaluate all the different coordinators and all the position coaches. And because I did that, I was able to see how people scored, and I took the team overall, and like the team's total overall, their offense overall, their defense overall, their positional average, and matched that with their performance. And ChatGPT said that Terry Shea, with all the talent he had on the Vikings offense, was one of the worst offensive coordinators. So based off of those analytics, he's gone. And he was only 14th in points, offensive points, had one of the worst offensive passing yards this season. He was 4th in rush yards, so he did pretty well with RG3 rushing the ball and Doug Martin. And then they were top 7 in protecting the ball and not having giveaways. But despite that, he had more talent than he utilized, and so he is moving on. Then we get some trouble. So AFC South, the 6-11 Colts fire Norv Turner after only 2 seasons. Ray Horton is retained after 6-11 season. Not a good season. I thought about firing him too, but Horton made the playoffs last year with Colt McCoy as his quarterback. He's never really had a chance at having a real quarterback, so we will see if the draft or if in free agency the Jaguars can correct that, and they want to give Horton kind of like a one more year to see what he can do. Jeff Fisher made the playoffs with Michael Vick, went 11-6, won the division by 5 games, so he's safe. And then Gus Bradley had the worst team in the league, 4-13. So let's break it down here. Norv Turner may have been unfairly fired in the sense that he only had 2 seasons, had Kirk Cousins mostly for those 2 seasons and did not go well. Now on offense, technically, he didn't do terribly this year. 4th in points somehow. They had, I think largely because of Chris Johnson, who just ran like a freaking maniac. They were top 9 in all of this. They protected the ball, but it was their defense that just got brutally destroyed. And because of that, they decided that, we're going to try a different direction here. And in his career in my franchise, he used to be the Vikings head coach, and he went to the Super Bowl, and he had Brett Favre, and he lost to Tom Brady and the Patriots. But he had a 70-48 record, but he only has a 10-24 record with the Colts after 2 seasons. But then he has his total record there, so you can check that out. He's never been Coach of the Year. Gus Bradley, on the other hand, had the lowest overall rated team in the NFL. So to fire him was kind of unfair because he didn't have talent. But he had an 11-6 season, 7-10, and 4-13. So the Tennessee Titans decided, you know what? We are seeing a regression with our team under Gus Bradley as head coach. He did replace his quarterback that they signed in that first year. It was Tavares Jackson. They gave him a 4-year deal, and he was 3 years into it. And he benched him in the 3rd year, basically giving up on that decision. They used Brett Hundley, the rookie. I think he was 2nd or 3rd round in my league. And in doing so, Hundley did not. I think he may have won 1 game the rest of the way out. So they were 27th in points, 31st in pass yards, 12th in rush yards. They were tied for 7th. There are a lot of ties for this. So 7th is like shared with a lot of teams. And then they were abysmal on defense. And Gus Bradley is a defensive coach, defensive minded, and they were terrible in takeaways, worst rushing defense. They were fourth from the bottom with points allowed, and fifth worst in pass yards. So that got him axed. And then Joe Schoen, the general manager for the Tennessee Titans, is also removed. So if you give your coach the worst rated team in the NFL, you're going to be gone. As you can see, some of his picks. Danny Watkins, he's now a starter somewhere else. He's more like a backup, I guess. He hasn't really became anything. He was more of a swing and a miss for a first-round pick. Muhammad Wilkerson has been doing okay, but he has not progressed that well. Fletcher Cox doing a bit better than Muhammad Wilkerson. David Wilson, he didn't really ever become the starting running back. They had Jonathan Stewart running, and then Wilson kind of came in every now and then. Xavier Rhodes, the jury's still out on him. In 2014, they didn't really have any good picks. It was C.J. Fedorowicz as a tight end. That was like one of their better picks. And then 2015, they went with Eric Armstead to try to help their pass rush, and they still boasted one of the worst defenses in the league. So they missed out on some good players going with Eric Armstead. He's not a bad player, but he's just not what they needed. So their manager is gone. A few more firings. We got the NFC South. So Vinny Testaverde in his first season led the Buccaneers to the number one record, 11-6. They got to the NFC Championship game, but lost to the Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams. Now Brad Childress, I thought he was on the hot seat. He started the season with Peyton Manning after making the playoffs with Manning for like 2-3 seasons, then bailed on Manning after they were like 1-3 or something like that, and they went with Jimmy Garoppolo, and it wasn't good. They went 6-11. Manning's Ravens went 6-11. So neither team did well. Like it wasn't Manning or the Falcons. They just nothing worked. But this was one bad season for him. The Falcons are giving him patience and allowing him to have another chance. But this will be a prove-it season if Brad Childress can stay. Now, John Fox, he's one of my very few coaches. There's Andy Reid, Bill Belichick, and John Fox, who I've had from the very, very beginning of this franchise. And John Fox led his team to the Super Bowl. They lost. He has had one of the top-tier defenses in the entire league, kind of like a Pittsburgh Steelers, Baltimore number one defense for multiple seasons. But he has now been fired. We'll get into his breakdown. And then Pat Shurmur, after 3 years as the Saints coach, has also been fired. So let's get into the details here. So, John Fox has missed the playoffs in the last 3 seasons. That's not good enough. Panthers want better. 6-11 is not a record you want to see. As you can see, offensively, they were 29th in points, 29th in rush yards, 18th in pass yards. And that's largely due to Joe Flacco and maybe losing and trailing in the game, so they threw more. Defense, they were top 5 in points allowed, top 5 in rush yards. They were 11th in pass yards, and they were pretty bad at takeaways, though. Now, his historical record, he's been with the Panthers his entire career, and his first season was my first season. So he has a 136 record, and 90 wins and 99 losses, a 6-6 playoff record, 1 NFC championship, and was the coach of the year 4 times. He may be a hot coaching candidate in this cycle, or he may take a year or 2 off, but I expect him to come back in my franchise, whether it's next season or in a future season. Now, Pat Shurmur, the Shermanator. He had a 5-12 season, and a 5-12 season, then an 8-9 season. They brought in Drew Brees, and that sort of helped them. They got the 19th pass yard rank, 26th in total points, 27th in rush yards, and then 16th right dead middle in giveaways. And then defensively, they were top 7 in points allowed, so they were pretty good there. They did terrible against the pass. And then rush yards, they were top 8. And then takeaways, they did a good job turning the ball or getting turnovers. But even though Shurmur got an improvement, they went 8-9. I could have seen that as a way of keeping him for another year because they showed growth. The Saints wanted to make the playoffs. This was a very weak division, and they had a chance to do it. They brought in Drew Brees, who had been to 3 Super Bowls and won 2 of them, and thought they could do it with them. And Pat Shurmur could not. And we can argue that maybe Pat Shurmur lost the locker room. Then we move on. Jerry Reese, the manager of the Saints has also been let go. He gave them Geno Smith, which they kind of abandoned, going for Michael Vick last year, I believe, and then going for Drew Brees this year. So they still have Geno Smith on contract, so he might be the starter if they decide not to trade or maybe go a different direction. Kenny Vaccaro, he went in 2014, he went with Sammy Watkins and Paul Richardson, so 2 wide receivers out of the gate. And then probably the decision that justifies his firing was drafting Cameron Irving with the 4th overall pick. And when I did that, it was a bad selection, not intentionally, but I went with it because in my league right now, progression has picked up for the wide receivers and cornerbacks, and then running backs. I don't like that. But the O-line does not progress as well. And so finding a good interior offensive lineman is very hard. And so I looked at it as the Saints drafted 2 receivers. So drafting Amari Cooper or someone like that didn't make sense. And there wasn't really a good running back, if I remember correctly, in 2015, other than Todd Gurley, which 4th might have been high for him. And so my thought process was Cam Irving, when coming out of college, was seen as he can play anywhere on the offensive line. He can play tackle, guard, center, move him wherever you want. So he was seen as a very special prospect. And I thought, well, what would a stupid team do? And they might take a chance on him, kind of like the Browns did. And so Jerry Reese decided to go with him. Irving has not been bad in Madden, but they could have done a lot better with that pick. And not very impressive as a manager, 18-33, not cutting it. So they move on from their GM and they move on from their coach. Now, Brad Childress, this is why I thought he could have been fired. 30th, 20th, 28th, 28th. Terrible on offense, and he's an offensive mind. Then we look at defense, right there in the middle of the pack, 20th, 16th, 18th, and 11th. However, to save his own rear end, he does fire the offensive coordinator, Ken Wisenhunt. And as you can see, when they had Peyton Manning and things were working well for them, this included, Le'Veon Bell was injured a little bit, but they were 3rd in points both years. 3rd and 4th in passing offense. 7th in giveaways. And then this year they were 30th, 28th, 28th. So Wisenhunt gets fired. He's kind of the fall guy for this season. So the Atlanta Falcons will have a new offensive coordinator this year. Now, AFC North, Browns win the division. That's a shocker. They went 11-6. Then we have Lovie Smith went 9-8, so had a positive record there for the Steelers. I thought they had a good chance of making the playoffs, but the Browns with Terrell Pryor was just too much. But Pittsburgh doesn't really fire their coaches, and Lovie Smith has already won them 2 Super Bowls, so Lovie Smith's going to be pretty chill for a while. Now, the Ravens went 6-11. They picked up Peyton Manning mid-year after 4 games. They had Derek Anderson going 2-2. I probably could have stuck it out with him, but I decided that at the time, the Ravens thought that if they brought in Peyton Manning, that they would be a playoff team, and they were not. However, it's still early in Dan Quinn's journey here, so I decided not to fire him. Also because the Ravens tend to be a more stable franchise. They're going to give their guy more time. He is a defensive-minded coach, so we're going to give him another season. And then Zimmer, even though he had the 2nd worst record in the league, 4-13, they used to have John Harbaugh, and that was his 2nd stint after Dallas, and he was 0-7, so they fired Harbaugh mid-year, and I'm like, I don't know if the Bengals really do that, so I'm trying not to be so spontaneous about firing a coach from like the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Ravens or the Bengals, who tend to be more forgiving with their coaches, whereas Cleveland, they'll axe you for, there's no consistency there. And so I decided to allow stability for the Bengals and the Ravens when they could have been on the hot seat and fired. And then, of course, Pettin, when you take your team to the playoffs, that's good. I mean, they got beat by the Patriots in the first round. Patriots made the Super Bowl. So Browns fans at least got a playoff berth. Now, there's a fall guy. So the Bengals do decide to move on from Wade Phillips. I guess they think his defense is obsolete. He was top 10 in the last year. Then he was the 2nd worst team in allowing points. 24th, 29th, and 11th on defensive statistics here. And the Bengals have the 3rd best overall ranked defense in talent. They've got Jadeveon Clowney. They've got Derek Morgan on the D-line. They have some of the best. They have Kenny Phillips as a safety. They got some great cornerbacks. It's hard to draft for this team now because they have so many great players all over their defense. And so when I looked at the stats and when I did the ChatGPT thing, it showed me that the Bengals DC was one of the worst performing coordinators, so he gets the boot. Also, the Ravens have a fall guy, and that's Josh McDaniels. They had the 31st ranked offense in scoring points, 13th in pass yards, largely due to Manning, which I am attributing it to Peyton Manning and not Josh McDaniels. They had the worst rushing attack in the league, and they were 21st in giveaways. And so they went from 7-10 to 6-11. Josh McDaniels did better in the first year than he did the second year, but McDaniels gets the boot as well. Then we got the NFC West, and we got the number one team there, the 11-6 San Francisco 49ers with Jed Fish. Did a great job after Tom Coughlin was let go from the 49ers after the worst record in the league last year. Breeze left, and Jed Fish drafted Jameis Winston, and that was a success. Going 11-6 with a rookie QB, fantastic. Unfortunately, they lost in the first round of the playoffs, they lost to the Minnesota Vikings in the first round of the playoffs. And then John DeFilippo is a Super Bowl winning head coach, but went 6-11 in what is a very competitive division since 3 out of the 4 teams made the playoffs. Mike McCarthy, I need to update him with the little Super Bowl graphic there. Here, give me 1 second. There it is. Now that's the LA Rams coach holding the Lombardi trophy, smiling like a little girl. Man, Mike McCarthy. But hey, he gets his first Super Bowl victory. He did that in real life a little bit earlier in real life than he did in my franchise. So yeah, he's safe. And then Pete Carroll went 11-6 with Matthew Stafford. Now the Seahawks have a loaded roster, and basically Matthew Stafford saved Pete Carroll from being fired earlier than his real life with the Seahawks. Now the Cardinals, after their bad season, as you can see, they were 12-5, 11-6, and they went 6-11. The year I think this was the year they won the Super Bowl, because then the Eagles won it the following year. And so they were second, and then they fell all the way down to 28th, 14th, 26th, and then they had like no takeaways. So the Cardinals decide to move on from their defensive coordinator, Tim Walton. They're going to look for something better. Now, potential head coach candidates. Why are these people here? Jason Garrett has been the offensive coordinator for San Diego for quite some time, leading one of the best offenses with Aaron Rodgers for many, many years. Recently. So he is a top coaching candidate. Brian Dable, with the work he's done with Terrell Pryor, making the Cleveland offense relevant, puts him in the category as being a potential head coach. Gary Kubiak, the offensive coordinator for Pittsburgh. He was a former Broncos head coach, so he has head coaching experience. And he is, and Pittsburgh had a decent offense this year. But we'll see if he gets a second chance at a coaching job. Mark Trestman did wonders with what I thought was a weaker Washington Commanders offense, winning 7 games. When we take a look at the Commanders, they were 11th in points, but they weren't like spectacular. But I think with the talent they had, he outperformed. Mac Brown, he's a famous Texan Longhorn head coach. He's been the offensive coordinator for quite a while with the Houston Texans, and with the Texans, just give him Michael Vick and CJ Spiller, and man, they were cooking this season. They were 3rd in rushing yards. Now, they were the worst passing team in the league, but that's because they did a lot of rushing with Michael Vick, who ran for 806 yards. CJ Spiller ran for 1,253 yards. They were 9th in total points. And so Mac Brown is definitely a head coaching candidate option. He's an older coach, so we'll see if someone bites on that. Now, Sean McVay, I think this was 2 years, before he got his coaching stint. So I want to give him a promotion because he just won the Super Bowl as part of Mike McCarthy's staff. So he is a hot young candidate like he was before, but I think he's like 28 or 29 right now. So he's still very, very young. That might be a deterrent for some teams. Randall Cunningham, the former quarterback that turned coach, he is up there because he led the number one team in the NFC on offense. They were 6th in points, 9th in rush yards. They were 12th in pass yards. So he's up there. Anthony Lynn, he was the Seattle Seahawks offensive coordinator. And Lynn over there, he's had a lot of nice weapons to go off of. And based off of the talent, I think he scored pretty well on the sheet. And so he is getting some looks as a head coach. Brian Flores, so we talked about the Buccaneers offense. Buccaneers defense didn't they were 21st in points allowed, 22nd in pass yards, 23rd in rush yards. But we know Brian Flores was a major tough coach, so he's getting some consideration by some teams. The Carolina Panthers, even though they let go of John Fox, we've seen this time and time again where there's a hot young coaching candidate and the team wants to promote from within. Or a coordinator is doing a great job, but maybe they were being held back by obsolete leadership at the head coach level. And with the defense, even though John Fox is a defensive-minded coach, Roman Pfeiffer helped lead the defense to 5th in points allowed. So they did a pretty good job preventing the other team from scoring. It was just that the offense was 29th in scoring, so that didn't help. And then they were 5th in rush yards allowed, so they were doing a great job stopping the run. They were 11th with pass yards, and then they had takeaways that were 25th, which was not so great. But Pfeiffer could be a potential candidate. Then you got the Miami Dolphin coach, Lou Anarumo. He's there because the Miami coaching staff is very hot because they are one of the top teams in the league. They didn't rank so great in the stats, but he's still an option. Anthony Weaver with the Kansas City Chiefs took a team in a very competitive division. They had the number 1 points with points allowed. So they had one of the best defenses in preventing people from scoring, which largely helped them win these games to get to the playoffs. 6th in pass yards, 6th in rush yards, 3rd in takeaways. Now, just because he's a good coordinator, according to these stats, doesn't mean he's a good head coach, but he is starting to get some looks here, even earlier than he did in real life. Because I think in real life, he started to get some head coaching looks. So that's nice to see that that's happening earlier in my league, because I think he's a good coach, and he'll land somewhere in real life. Then we got Matt Patricia. He's there because the Patriots made the Super Bowl. So when you make the Super Bowl, you get some attention. His defense was mid, 15th in points allowed, 13th in pass yards, 17th in rush yards, 17th in takeaways. So it's not so much he had a stellar defense, but he made the Super Bowl, so he's being considered. And then Mike Tomlin, he used to be the Packers coach. They had like a really good season, really bad season, really good season. And then he ended up getting let go. The Ravens were not that great on defense, but he is still seen as a good coach, so he is going to get a look in this offseason. So you want to see who they went with? Well, the new coaches are Jason Garrett going to the Indianapolis Colts. Colts like a stable, boring white guy as their coach, and so we're going to stick with that model with Jason Garrett. And so where they're bringing in an offensive mind, and Norv Turner was offensive-minded, but was a bit older. And so they're bringing in a new mind here from the Chargers. He's actually been due for a head coaching job in real life. He would have gotten it in 2011, I think, when he went to the Dallas Cowboys. So getting it here in 2016 is late for him. And we will see how long he lasts. But there's a lot of renovations that have to take place with the Colts. They had a pretty powerful offense despite not really being in line with their quarterback. It was mostly Chris Johnson carrying the team. Then we got Anthony Lynn pulling in a head coaching job. Seattle had been pretty solid as a offensive juggernaut with Stafford and Lynch and some of the other players. So Anthony Lynn ends up joining the Tennessee Titans coaching staff. And I'm not sure if Anthony Lynn is going to be there for a long time, but I'm also trying to help diversify some of the coaches in my league, because just like the real NFL, it's easy to lean toward. There are so many white coaches that it's easy to overlook qualified candidates that should get coaching jobs, so I try to guide it. Now, I just decided to promote from within. So just like the Buffalo Bills firing McDermott and then hiring Joe Brady, well, the Panthers decide not to go with an offensive-minded coach, but they promote Roman Pfeiffer, their defensive coordinator, to head coach. And then, as a surprising one, the New Orleans Saints went with the young offensive-minded Pat Shurmur, and it didn't work out. Now they're going with the Texans, the guy with the Texan Longhorn head coach. He's got head coaching experience in college. He's been the Texans offensive coordinator for several years, seeing how when Shurmur had Michael Vick, it didn't go well. When Mac Brown had Michael Vick, it was Mac Brown. He went to the playoffs. So the Saints see something in him, and they are going with him as their head coach. Now, when we look at coaching staffs, The Bill Polian stays as GM. He's not fired, even though it's been rough on somewhat with the Colts, but they just need a new coach. Jason Garrett, you can see there, he's the head coach. Eric Bieniemy, was the former running backs coach for San Diego. So I figured Jason Garrett decided to bring along Eric Bieniemy and be his offensive coordinator. And I think depending on how the Colts turn things around, Bieniemy could be a head coach in my reality, unlike real life. And then Robert Saleh, he was the Seattle Seahawks linebackers coach. So we see a strong showing from the Seattle team this year. And Robert Saleh ends up getting the DC gig. Then Titans, they hire Rustin Webster as their GM. I'm looking through these different executives and trying to assign them somewhere. Anthony Lynn as head coach. Pat Shurmur comes over from the New Orleans Saints. Head coaching didn't work out for him, but he was seen as a very good offensive mind, offensive coordinator, and the Titans have the number 1 overall pick. And so that's very likely going to be Jared Goff. And so young quarterback, and we'll see how Pat Shurmur guides him. And speaking of Sean McDermott was a coordinator before. He's never had a head coaching experience yet. But he goes from the Green Bay Packers defensive backs coach to being the new Tennessee Titans DC. Panthers' new staff, they do hire Sashi Brown. He was with the Browns. He's the current Baltimore Ravens GM or front office staff president. Roman Pfeiffer has been promoted from within. Matt Nagy, the former Kansas City Chiefs quarterbacks coach, who helped coach up Blake Bortles, he gets the offensive coordinator coaching gig here in Carolina. And then Leslie Frazier, who was the Tennessee Titans defensive coordinator, makes a lateral move from Tennessee, the worst talented team in the league, now to the Carolina Panthers, who are a pretty solid defense. And so he still has Roman Pfeiffer there to run it the way he wants, but I think Leslie Frazier is going to help this Panthers defense. Then we got the Saints coaching staff. So Chris Ballard, who's the current, Colts GM, brought in Mac Brown, the old man, to be the coach. Mac Brown brings in Nathaniel Hackett, who was the Philadelphia Eagles quarterbacks coach. He helped a little bit with, it wasn't really much with McNabb this year, even though he had more of a decline, but helping the Teddy Bridgewater development. And I don't think he's that good of a coach, Hackett, but sometimes you have to make bad decisions because teams don't always make the right move. And then Gus Bradley going from head coach of the Titans, now going back to his core competency, being a defensive coordinator for the Saints. And then new coordinators around the league. Todd Bowles replaces Wade Phillips as the Cincinnati Bengals defensive coordinator. He used to be the Colts defensive coordinator, now making a lateral move. Norv Turner is now joining John Gruden in New York to be the new play caller for the New York Giants after his failed stint there in Indianapolis. Marty Morningway actually was the Baltimore Ravens offensive coordinator this season. So I decided, let's do it. And so he makes the lateral move going from the Chicago offensive coordinator to the Ravens offensive coordinator. Todd Downing coached Brock Osweiler out a little bit of his league, where Osweiler is not that great of a quarterback, but overplayed his overall, developed fairly well, and he actually was one of the quarterbacks that had the least turnovers in the league, if I remember correctly. He did, and then he had 30 touchdowns and 15 interceptions, 3,300 yards though. So with that development of the quarterback, Downing gets the Atlanta Falcons offensive coaching job behind Brad Childress. Also new coordinators, Aaron Glenn, with all those turnovers Cleveland had. I think were they top in the league on defense? They were number 1 in turnovers. So Aaron Glenn gets a promotion from being the defensive backs coach in Cleveland to being the coordinator in Arizona. Good on him. He's replacing Walton. And then Josh McDaniels goes from Baltimore to Houston because the Houston Texans need a new offensive coordinator, and they get that with Josh McDaniels. And then Todd Monken, I forgot about him, and since he's now the Browns' new head coach, I figured I'd get him in the league somehow. And so he's going from the NCAA, being a head coach there, I think at Southwestern or something like that. And he is now the offensive coordinator for Chicago, taking on Marty Morningway's job. Then you got Ken Wisenhunt, the offensive coordinator for the Minnesota Vikings. So he replaces Terry Shea as the offensive coordinator, going from the Falcons to the Vikings. And so there you have it, all of the coaching changes. I could show you the position changes as well real quick. I know this is a long video. So here is my PowerPoint where you see the new coach changes. So we already talked about these. So Garrett, Lynn, Rooston Webster, Roman Pfeiffer, Mack, Sashi Brown, and Chris Ballard. And then these are all the other head coaches in the league, all the GMs in the league for the AFC and the NFC. Then we've got the defensive coordinator position here, an offensive coordinator for each of the teams. So we see Marty Morningway is gone. Bieniemy is now the new coach of the Ravens. Bowles, Saleh, McDermott, Shermer, McDaniels, Bieniemy, Munkin, Weisenhunt, Downing, Nagy, Hackett, Turner, Glenn, Frazier, Bradley. As for position coaches, we see Greg Olson, the former Giants coordinator, becomes the quarterbacks coach in Green Bay. Dave Ragone is a new coach there for the Vikings after some shifts there for that team. We see Tony Sperano going from coordinator in Indianapolis to being the O-line coach. Rick Christoffel, George Yarno moving around. We got Terry Shea, the former offensive coordinator for the Vikings, is now the Panthers quarterbacks coach. Livonia Mitchell, Ricky Prohl, Pete Horner, Frank Pollock, Joe Lombardi, Drew Staley, Eric Yarber, Alex Van Pelt, Bob Wiley. Jay Gruden's getting back into coaching. I think he was a coordinator for a little bit, then he was gone for a bit. He has now taken over Nathaniel Hackett's job and hopefully to usher in a new quarterback situation for the Eagles after McNabb's retirement. Randy Jordan coming in there with the running backs coaches. And then on defense, we got Gary Emanuel hopping in a D-line coach. Ted Monachino, DB for the Packers. We got Andre Curtis. And some of these people were fired because I did the ChatGPT to see who was bad. I also, if I felt like I needed to move someone on or they got a promotion, like Matt Eberflus. Okay, now got him involved. He's now with Seattle. Or we got Bruce DeHaven as a special teams guy. Chris Kokorik. Dennis Allen now back in the coaching thing. He's with the Saints there as their defensive backs coach. Now AFC, some changes. So Ravens, they have some changes there. They need to shake some things up. They get Bill Callahan to help their offensive line, Bobby Ingram at wide receivers, and Thomas Hammock. That team needed some coach changes, and they do. They lost their offensive coordinator, so some offensive changes were made. Kirby Wilson is now taken over for Eric Bieniemy, and Kirby Wilson's a pretty good running backs coach. Mike Shula, quarterback coach, for filling in for Nagy, who used to be there, Matt Nagy. Pep Hamilton used to be a head coach, and he actually led the Tennessee Titans for several seasons. He was a young guy. He was one of my minority coaches that did really, really well, and then he tailed off and got fired. But James Saxon, Greg Lewis, Jim Bowman, Al Saunders, pretty solid coaching staff here for the Indianapolis Colts. So Garrett has a pretty good team there. Tony Bozelli, he is actually trying to be an executive for the Jaguars. He used to be an offensive lineman in real life for the Jaguars, one of their all-time greats. And so I'm allowing him to pursue a coaching career. Brian Schottenheimer took a year off after being fired from Chicago. Now he's back with the Titans. Then you got Jim Skipper, the old man, running backs coach, Ike Hillard. And then Mike DeBoard and Rob Boris. And then because Tom Brady was sacked the most of all quarterbacks, and because that's what nailed him in the Super Bowl, they fired, I think like Rick Hunt, something Hunt. Dante Scarnecchia ends up being the Patriots' new offensive line coach. And then we've got Jim Haslett, veteran play caller, defensive coordinator. He fills in as the D-line coach there for the Bengals. Louis Siafi fills in for Aaron Glenn with that promotion. And then Darren Simmons, special teams. Sean Slocum for the Titans special teams. Keith Butler, Mike Caldwell, Jason Tarver, Williams. We see Steve Wilkes there as DB coach. Larry Foote. I'm giving the Steelers linebacker a chance to be a potential coach. So the linebacker coach there. He is a real coach in real life as a linebacker. We'll see if he progresses in my league better than he did in real life to be a real coach, maybe to be a coordinator or a head coach someday. And then we got rid of the linebackers coach. It was a former Luke Fickell, former Ohio State coach. Luke Fickell came over with Jim Tressel when he coached the Cleveland Browns. And then Fickell's more of a college coach. So I brought in Stephen Belichick to finish up, to give him the nepotism hire that was his life. Now, I won't show you everything, but this is how I keep track of my coaches. So I have my coordinators every year, what their records are, did they make the playoffs, see what the changes look like. I then have this table, which shows who the owner and GM is. Bengals is not as exciting because it's Mike Brown as the GM, but these are the coaches. Then these are my position coaches for every single team. Or that I have one of these for every team. And then I've got the defense there. Those positions, like even the Browns. This is a better example. You got like all these different GMs, all these different coaches because they've had a lot of hiring and firings. But anyway, this is a long video. Hope you enjoyed it. If you like this nerding out over a fake alternate reality of the NFL, then subscribe to the channel and hear more. Because this is the way I like to play Madden. I get bored of the regular teams, so I love doing the retro franchise, the years that I grew up playing Madden and watching football. I still watch it, but like I always like the retro rosters and progression. But anyway, thanks for watching the video. I appreciate you, and I will see you in the next video, as there's a lot more to this postseason coming up.